Hello everybody! Have you ever made something for someone special in your life? Handmade gifts are not only unique, but they also express how much you care for the person you give them to. In this video, I will show you how to make a doll. I will be giving this to the most important person in my life, and I want you to be a part of the process. And if you stay till the end, we can talk more about handmade gifts. For now, let's get started. I first made the patterns. You decide how big you want your doll to be. I wanted mine on the bigger side, so I just drew what looked right to me. I made 7 pattern pieces and cut them out. Don't forget to label everything. I also made patterns for the little pouch that's going to hold the plastic pellets to add weight to the body. I pinned the strip to the circle and sewed it together. Then I did the same with the other circle. Once it was all sewn together, I turned it right side out. And then it was time to pour the plastic pellets through the little hole. I used a funnel for this part. Then I just hand sewed the opening shot. Once my pellet pouch is ready, I can get started on my doll. I bought 4 squares of felt, pinned my pattern pieces and cut them out. I also cut out some iron-on interfacing for the body pieces to make them stronger, because the body is what's going to hold everything together. Once I ironed on the interfacing, then I started hand sewing the pattern pieces together. I cut long pieces of my embroidery floss because I wanted to keep a continuous stitch line. I want this doll to look very much handmade, and because my stitches are going to be on the outside, I'm using the blanket stitch to sew my pieces together. Before I finished sewing all the body pieces together, I put my pellet pouch inside and then finished sewing the body. Next, I put in the filling. I just love this part, it's so satisfying. Moving on to the head. Because my felt squares weren't long enough, I had to sew together 2 pieces to make my long strip. Before I sew my pieces together, I need to add the eyes. And since I'll be doing a lot of sewing on this piece, I ironed on some interfacing here as well. I first drew the eyes on my pattern piece, so I could then transfer it onto the felt piece. First, I wanted to embroider the eyes, so I started doing just that, and wasted a lot of time. Because I didn't like how they were coming out, so I just cut another felt piece and transferred the eyes again. But this time I only embroidered the eyelids and the eyebrows. Then I sewed buttons on for the eyes. I was satisfied with the eyes this time, but in the future I think I'm just going to paint them on. I just need to practice before. Well, moving on. I then continued sewing the head pieces together. This is done same as I did for the palette pouch, except everything is hand sewn and I'm still using the blanket stitch. Next, I put some filling through the opening, and when it was full and puffy, I hand sewed the opening shot. Moving on to the legs, I put 2 pieces together and began sewing them together. Before I finished sewing, I put in the filling. And then just finish the stitch line. Then I followed the same steps for the arms. Once I had all my pieces ready, it was time to put my doll together. So starting with the head, I used some pins to help me hold it in place and then began sewing it to the body. For the arms and the legs, I will be using buttons because I want them to be able to move. Starting with the arms, I held them in place with pins. Then I tied a button to the end of my embroidery floss, and I'm using a long needle because I need to be able to go in through one arm and out the other. For the legs, I had to buy a longer needle because the one I had wasn't long enough for this part. So keep that in mind. The bigger you make your doll, the longer the needle has to be. And then I just follow the same steps as before. Of course, I did a couple of knots to hold all my stitches in place. Now, let me just say, all of that was very time consuming, but nothing compared to what is next. The hair. I bought thin yarn and cut a lot of 10-inch strips. Then I took 4 of the yarn strips, put them together, folded them in half and made a knot in the middle. And then I just cut open the small loops. Make a whole bunch of them, and then we can start sewing them onto the head. First, I had to pin the little strips of yarn in place to help me plot the position before sewing them. Starting at one side of the face and going all around the back to the other side, and then just sew them in place with lots and lots of patience. Continue doing this until you get to the top of the head and fill out every open space. And that's it. That's how I made my doll. Now it's time to make her clothes and dress her up. For that, I draped paper on her and made little patterns. But because this video is just about how to make the doll, let me talk a little more about handmade gifts while you watch me make her little outfit. Not everyone has the talent, creativity, or patience to do things like this. And it doesn't matter how much talent you have, when it comes to doing things like this, it still takes time and practice to achieve a product that you're satisfied with. When we make things for the people we care about, we put a lot of thought into it. It is a one-of-a-kind gift for a one-of-a-kind person, right? Right. For this particular gift, I only spent $54 on material that I needed because some things I already had. I am a seamstress after all. Now, here comes the most important information you need to know. It took me 66 hours to complete this doll, from pattern making to finishing her little outfit. And yes, I kept track of time. Now, for those of you who have received handmade gifts from someone, I want you to know that during the process of making your gift, we're thinking of you that whole time. And no, don't ever think that you need to make us something in return or buy us something. The whole point of us making you something is to thank you for what you have already given us. Most of the time, we appreciate the time you spend with us. And because we all know how valuable time is, that is why we're happy to give you our time as a gift. With that said, if you're the person making stuff for other people, please make sure they're worth your time. It doesn't matter how experienced you are or how fast you can make a specific something. Think about what you're giving and what is given to you. Sometimes we make stuff for people just to show them how much we like them, because we know what it takes to make something, but they don't. So yes, sometimes your efforts go unnoticed. And yes, that's okay. You like that person for a reason. But be a little selfish. Don't forget that time is money. Don't forget that time never comes back to you. And so today, I will be giving this doll to myself. Because I deserve it. Because I deserve to spend more time on myself. Because at some point in our lives, we need to stop putting other people first. You have a talent, you have a passion, and not everybody's going to understand it or cherish it the way you do. And no, I'm not just talking about crafts or sewing. Be proud of what you do and be selective over the people you give your time to. It is the most valuable thing you own. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video.